And we're back on the Liberal Oasis radio show, WHMP, news, information, and the arts. Don't forget, every Tuesday, 5 p.m., Knitting Liberally at the Yellow Sofa, downtown Northampton, followed by Drinking Liberally, 6:30 p.m. at the Northampton Brewery. All are always welcome. And before then, this Sunday, tomorrow, big benefit concert for the First Churches, the Raise the Roof Music for the Meeting House concert. 2 p.m. at the Calvin Theater, $12 for adults, $8 for children and seniors. Tons of great acts, Primate Fiasco, Zoe Darrow and the Fiddleheads, School of the Dead, lots more. And with us to talk about that, excuse me, and other issues regarding the presidential race, Reverend Peter Ives, minister of the First Churches. Great to be with you.
It's great to be with you, Bill. It's good to be on your Liberal Oasis radio show.
Thank you. There's been a lot of pressure put on Democrats for several years to talk more about faith,
right?
Personal faith, to play down separation of church and state, not give a sense that Democrats are hostile to religion. Yet you now see in the current presidential race, not just the flap with Senator Obama and his former pastor, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. There's also some percolation of issues with John McCain and who he calls his spiritual guide, Rod Parsley, who has called for a war against Islam. The endorsement that McCain solicited from Reverend John Hagee, who has said some anti-Catholic things and arguably anti-Semitic things. As even a little bit about Senator Clinton involving her relationship to a Christian group called the Fellowship or the Family, which has some right-wing ties. Is it possible that we're now seeing the downside of talking about bringing together faith and politics, because now people are subscribing things from what their pastors say and putting them onto the candidate when arguably they shouldn't be relevant, or should they be relevant? Is this a fair topic of conversation for people to look at when judging what candidates they support?
Well, that's a great question, and it's so relevant to the issues of our time right now. I've been on your radio show before saying that it was important for these candidates to talk about their personal faith and to do it in a very personal way. And it was important for us as the American voters to understand these candidates and what their religious background is and how their religion shapes their values and how their values shape public policy that they stand behind. And I still feel it's very important for the voters to hear politicians do that. But as you say, and I also have said, it's very important for Democrats to do that, because I think one of the reasons Kerry lost the election was because they didn't do that enough. On the other hand, you're raising a really good point, and Ron Romer, the former chair of the National Democratic Party, has already said to these candidates, there's too much God talk being injected into public policy issues right now, and it's hurting the campaigns. And so I sense that too, and I'm sort of backing away a little bit.
So where's the balance? What's the proper line for candidates to draw if they are to properly express how their personal faith shapes their worldview without seeming like they're talking about a theocracy,
right? And
without alienating other voters,
right? It's tricky. It's tricky. Now, for example, with Barack Obama, he's been a member of Jeremiah Wright's church in Chicago. Trinity United Church of Christ is a highly respected United Church of Christ. I'm a pastor of the United Church of Christ, so I'm a colleague with Jeremiah Wright. There are 6,000 United Church of Christ across this country. We're the oldest denomination in the country.
So you were familiar with his work before this controversy.
He's a highly respected pastor in the United Church of Christ. I have sermons on file that he's delivered at national conferences for the United Church of Christ. The president of the United Church of Christ, John Thomas, has taken him around to the New York Times and the various press corps to try to help them to understand some of his statements that he's made. So I can't back away from what Jeremiah Wright is as a pastor and as a person. He talks very strongly about racism in this country and the the institutional racism that we still have in America. I talk about that here at First Churches in Northampton. He talks about 9/11 and the way that American foreign policy was somewhat responsible for what happened that day.
Which is not the same as saying that Osama bin Laden was not responsible.
That's right. It's not saying that. It's exactly right. But clearly, our foreign policy has been such in the Middle East that we were taking huge risks of something like this happening. That's what he was trying to say too. So I can't back away from Jeremiah Wright, and I think Barack Obama has done a wonderful. In his talk about religion and politics, I thought he did a wonderful way of making the distinctions between himself and what he stands for, and his pastor. And
so when you saw those clips as a fellow pastor, what was your reaction? Saying, "Oh, that's too far out there. He crossed the line," or it's unfair to cherry pick little snippets and use that to characterize somebody? Did you think that someone could have done that on me and taken 2 lines of a sermon of mine
Absolutely.
and make me look bad?
He was playing the role of the prophet. He was playing the role of Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel. And in some ways, he was playing the role of Jesus. We are all called to speak truth to power as pastors. That's our calling as pastor. And I feel Jeremiah Wright was doing that. Did he go over the edge at some points? Probably he did. But to talk about institutional racism and to talk about American foreign policy the way he did, none of us who are pastors in the United Church of Christ would back away from that. And you hear it happening in First Churches and in other UCC churches across this state. So there I feel like it's very important to see that Barack Obama is a person of deep faith. He's got strong values, and they're affecting his policies, but it's in a way that is truly American. It's truly American if you understand the religious history of this country and the importance of social justice and the importance of the way religion has promoted social justice in this country. It's completely understandable the very good influences that have shaped Barack Obama's life. Hillary Clinton, too. Now, she's been associated with this fellowship group, and that's a little scary to me. But on the other hand, she's also been part of the Methodist Church, which is a wonderful mainline denomination in this country. And her early mentor was a man named Don Jones, who went to Union Theological Seminary, where I went to seminary, Bill, in New York, and was a product of the teachings of Reinhold Niebuhr and Paul Tillich. And again, he was a very good influence on her. Some people say it was a conservative neo-Orthodox influence. But my understanding of that is that Don Jones was a very wonderful influence on her in terms of the social gospel movement and real values of social justice. And so I'm reluctant to be critical of Hillary for her connection with the fellowship. But with some of the people around John McCain, I think that's extremely dangerous. I think this pastor, his pastor John Hagee, and the other pastor who is Rod Parsley. They're saying things like that the Muslim tradition is the enemy, that Islam is the enemy. And that is extremely dangerous to say. For example, we just had an incident in West Springfield where the mosque has just been, the windows have been broken. All 3 main windows in the mosque in West Springfield have been broken because they're a community of faith for Islam. Islam is one of the 3 major religious traditions in the world, has a larger population than any other denomination now. And for that mosque to be hit with stones because people are inflaming this country with talk about the Muslim tradition being evil, we have to speak truth to power on this one. That's wrong. And there, I think the election and the campaigns are in danger of going way too far when you're escalating a political election with using religion really as hate mongering behind the scenes.